Welcome to What's New, podcast where we interview key leaders in town about what's next in New Orleans. I am excited to introduce a new concept for What's New, Walt Talk, which is going to be a podcast hosted with Walt Leger, the CEO of New Orleans and Company. And for those who might not know, New Orleans and Company is the tourism arm that supports our city's tourism and hospitality industry. So Walt is an incredible leader in town, and more importantly, a friend who is working so hard to make our city great. First, Walt, welcome
Thank you.
to
Thank
Walt
you, Tim.
Talk.
Great to be with you. I love the name.
ChatGPT helped me with it. First, tell me a little bit about you, your background, and then secondarily about New Orleans and Company.
Well, I appreciate your the entry and your suggestion that I'm working to make the city great. I always consider it that I'm working to try to make sure everybody knows how amazing that it is. Our team definitely works to try to improve it from day to day, but mostly it's our honor to go out and tell the world about how incredible this place is. It's the most unique and remarkable city anywhere, and fortunately people have a great love and admiration for our city, and so that helps. But every city wants the business that we try to attract, and our team works really hard every day to do it. I'm born and raised in the region. Grew up in St. Bernard Parish.
High school
at Jesuit High School.
Oh, nice. All right.
And eventually LSU for college, and then Tulane for law school.
Yep.
My first job as a lawyer was as an assistant district attorney here in the city of New Orleans, prosecuting all sorts of cases from the most serious to the most minor. And I did that for almost 3 years. Unfortunately, Katrina interrupted the third and final year that I was there, and I moved into civil litigation at that point, and mostly for the first many years represented businesses and homeowners and others who had insurance claims as a result of Hurricane Katrina and the disruption of that in their lives and in their businesses, and then went on to do other things. I'm a maritime and admiralty lawyer by training, and specialized in admiralty and maritime law for the whole time that I practiced. But I stopped practicing in 2020. I'm still a lawyer and licensed, but I'm not practicing anymore. While I was practicing, I was in the legislature for 12 years, represented part of New Orleans, Central City, Irish Channel, Uptown, part of the Broadmoor area, Holly Grove, part of Gertown, and served 3 terms there in the House of Representatives. The first 2 terms under Governor Bobby Jindal, and the third term, John Bell Edwards' first term as governor. We can only serve 3 terms in Louisiana, and so I was term limited. And at that point was given the opportunity to come join New Orleans and Company as their first ever in-house counsel and a vice president. And I did that about 3 months before COVID tore apart the tourism and hospitality industry and so many other things across our community. The long-term president and CEO, Stephen Perry, soon after decided that he was going to retire after 22 years of service, and I was fortunate enough that the board offered me the job, and so now I get to work with about 95 people who work to market, promote, sell the city for corporate conventions, conferences, meetings, leisure travel. We've got a great public relations team that hosts journalists, and that places about 1,600 positive news stories a year in various websites or journals and magazines. We've got an incredible team that works on things that impact our industry and our community on behalf of our members. We have about 1,200 business members, and we work on things like homelessness and public safety and other challenges. And we also work on things that are just, I think, moving us forward, like sustainability efforts. We've worked really hard around Mardi Gras to try to build a more sustainable event for our whole community, and that's been really successful. We're working on some accessibility issues now, and that means helping businesses to identify ways that they can be more accessible to more people, not just to kind of meet the threshold of what ADA compliance requires, but how can you give people the information they need so that as they come to your business or as they come to our city, they can access it in the best way possible. So, the impact of our industry is broad, and it impacts so many things in our city. It gives us a great opportunity to be impactful and we have an incredible team that just loves our community so much and fights for it every day. And we're out there competing against every city in America and every city in the world to try to make sure that people pick us and spend their time here with us and understand how special we are.
Well, actually, I think that's what I'd love for this conversation to be every month is I'd love to hear your pitch about why New Orleans. So I met your job is to represent us around the country and convince people why New Orleans is a great place to host their meeting or do business. First, for folks who are listening from data, how many people come into town every year and how much do they spend?
Yeah, so, I mean, in 2019, we were sort of on a huge upswing. There were, the numbers were growing from year to year. I believe that year we topped out at 19.5 million visitors.
19 million.
19.5 million visitors who spent about $10 billion. And that includes travel and other things associated with it, but about $10 billion of expenditures for those 19.5 million visitors, which is, massive by any stretch. And but certainly for a city that's about 400,000 people. And so some of the things that are so special about our city are the variety and the number of incredible world-class restaurants and things like that require there to be visitors to support them, because the fact is they're just, the numbers are so much higher than what would typically be found in a 400,000 person city. Mm-hmm. So they say we punch above our weight class. That's something that people talk about a lot. That's just a fact. We've got the Super Bowl coming up. Look at the other cities that host Super Bowls. Yeah. Most of those cities have more people in their city than we do in our state. And they have 17, 18, 20 Fortune 500 companies in their communities where we have one. We're just different. We're a different city from a structural standpoint than a lot of those, but we compete with all of them every day, and we compete really well. And we should take some pride in that. People have recognized for at least 3 to 4 decades that especially the meeting, conference, convention industry and the meetings industry is both a great way to attract business people and business interaction to your community, but also great economic impact because of the fact that you need meeting space and hotels, and you buy out a restaurant and you need a venue so that you can entertain, and then all of the exhibitors or others that are participating do the same thing, and it really reverberates. You've got to hire caterers, you've got to hire audio-visual technicians, and on and on and on. We were sort of at the forefront of that, but other cities have paid attention, and now instead of 8 cities that we compete with 30 or 35, and they all want all the same business that we get. We have to put our best foot forward, and we do that in a really competitive way that I think people should be proud of. Everybody likes to win, and we certainly like to win. We want to beat Dallas, and we want to beat Atlanta, and we want to beat San Francisco and all these other cities that want this business. We want to get it for our people and for our businesses and for our community, and we do that every day. Do we win every time? Sure. It's competitive. Of course we don't, but we win a lot, and speaks volumes for the people in our community that do this work.
So I think, and you and I've talked about the people we need to sometimes convince the most are the people who live here. So if you were able to give 3 or 4 positive stats and facts that you communicate to people coming to town, what are the things that excite you the most about living here and why people should do business here? What are the top 3 or 4?
Well, to me, the top thing that resonates with people is authenticity. The thing that our customers tell us the most is that they feel so welcome here, and this is the thing I'm most proud of. Making people feel welcome and inviting them into your community in a way that is authentic and that's real and that sort of opens your arms and says, "Come on in." Our people do that really naturally. It doesn't have to be coached. It doesn't have to be encouraged. It's just something that people do. It's like saying hello on the street when you walk by.
And that's different than other cities.
It's different. It's sometimes hard.
But we think this is normal.
It's sometimes hard because we think it's normal, right? Yeah. And I recently had a friend who moved from New Orleans to another city, a city in Florida, and she was saying that the thing that has struck her the most is just that when she's walking down the street, people don't say good morning. Mm-hmm. And like, that's just odd to me that that's the thing that strikes you. But she's like, I think we all take that for granted. So the friendliness that we display to each other in the grocery store, or, I mean, I feel like I have a conversation with the people I'm in line with at the grocery store every time I'm in there. And that's just not normal in other places, right? So there's a friendliness factor, and I think that translates itself in a lot of ways. I think it's why people like people from New Orleans. We're just a little different, and in most ways, it's a really positive thing, like in a really positive way. Very friendly, welcoming, and open, and that resonates with meeting planners. It resonates with business professionals and others who are looking for places to do their event, because people always want to feel that. And certainly in other cities, they're getting taken care of. I don't mean to suggest that other people aren't doing this, but there is a certain level of authenticity with it that resonates. Two, I think we talk a lot about just the general structure of the city. The fact that it is relatively compact, that it's another thing we take for granted, the fact that you can move around the city in 15, 20 minutes and be anywhere. We sometimes get frustrated with that.
Walk from the Bourbon Street to the Superdome. I mean,
well, the walking downtown is one thing, but even just moving around the whole city. I mean, you can get from Lakeview to Uptown in 20 minutes. You can get from, New Orleans East to downtown in 20 minutes. You can get from anywhere to anywhere in 20 minutes. And if you think about it, and you travel from meetings, conferences, anywhere else, it's pretty common that they stick you in a bus and drive you 45 minutes to dinner, or an hour over to this place or that place. I mean, we do have an ease of movement that can be facilitated in a good way. Now, that's not to say that there aren't ways to improve that, and we should with RTA and other things. But when you talk about downtown, and when you talk about getting business done at a meeting or a convention or conference, it's important to note two things, I think. About 50% of the business that we do in the meetings industry is housed at the convention center, and it's what we would refer to as like citywide, which means that it's a big event. The other half of it are small meetings that happen in one hotel, or in a venue around the town that could be 50 people, and it could be 500 people, but they're relatively small. And there are literally hundreds of those that happen every year. And there's more than 100 big events that happen at the convention center every year. Another thing that's important to note about that is that of that 19.5 million in visitorship and the 10 billion in expenditures, only about 25% of those visitors, or 4.5 million or so, are here for a conference, convention, or meeting, but they spend about 6 billion of the dollars. So disproportionately an impactful group of visitors, and also a very sustainable group, because there are times where there is a point at which too many visitors is too many visitors. I don't know what that number is, and I don't think we're there yet.
Not there yet.
But you see in other communities that they're under pressure with that. So I think it's important for people to kind of grasp that this meetings and convention side of the industry, it's a sustainable part of travel, in that fewer people, more expenditure, more support for businesses, more support for locals, and also disproportional in the amount of money that they're spending and contributing when they're here. But what's really attractive to those groups is that 26,000 hotel rooms in the downtown core, about a 2-mile triangle between Convention Center, Superdome, and the French Quarter. No other place can do that. I mean, there are plenty of people who will tell you what is wrong with New Orleans. I mean, we can go find that on any street corner. But I really commend the people, the political leaders, the business community leaders, the folks that said, you know what, we need to put the Superdome here on Pointer Street. You know what, we need to put the convention center here on the riverfront, right in this area. I mean, they really got that right. And it's something that absolutely resonates with our customers. They save money. They don't have to bus people around as much. And they get a campus-like environment in our city that they just can't get anywhere else, where when your event's here, like, it's here. It's important, it's meaningful, and you're compact enough that people can kind of be together. Even when it's 30,000 people, you can be in one place. We know how incredible it is for sporting events. I mean, it clearly is world-class for major sporting events, but for each meeting, that compactness matters a lot, and that's something that we talk about quite a bit.
And you said something last time, which was interesting. Two things: that New Orleans was ranked one of the best places to visit in August.
Yeah, well,
which was And then you tell me how many conventions are in town now in August, which was
Yeah, it's
mind-boggling.
great. Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because it is probably the thing I'm one of the most proud of right now. When our PR team hosts a lot of journalists, I mentioned that, and that's just part of the business, right? Like you've got to get people here to be able to see what's happening here and then report on it. And so our counterparts are doing that all over the country. We're fortunate that when we invite these people to come, they really do want to come to New Orleans, and they do, and they write about us. We had a great journalist here in in June. She wrote a piece that says there are 15 places that you've got to go in August, and New Orleans is one of them. And we all recognize that the weather can be a little challenging in August, but I think New Orleans is still an amazing place to visit in August, and apparently Travel and Leisure magazine does too. And so
The drinks are colder.
we're going to take that to the bank.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, there really isn't a bad time to visit, but August is probably not at the top of everyone's list, but certainly it made this list for Travel and Leisure. That's something I feel like we worked hard to earn.
Yeah.
And was happy to get it. But yeah, we were also talking about the number of meetings. So a perfect example, August of this year in 24, it's a great example that gives you the picture because we had a bunch of events at the convention center, but they weren't massive. They were, they were big enough and they were meaningful, but they weren't the 25,000 or 30,000 person convention. There were a few events. But 3 weeks ago, we had 23 meetings going on in the city of New Orleans in 23 different locations, different hotels all over town, totaling about 35,000 visitors. And so if you really think about it, what's more impactful, one meeting of 35,000 or 23 meetings of 35,000?
Yeah.
The truth is the 23 meetings is more impactful. Each of those meetings was hiring caterers, and each of those meetings was hiring audiovisual technicians, and each of them was renting tables and linens and all the things that go along with that. And so,
And they're going back to wherever they're from, 23
and then
different
going back
places.
23, right? So, it was interesting though. I had somebody kind of tell me, well, at least it's kind of not the busiest time for conferences. Like you would think that because you don't see that big kind of tentpole conference that's, American Medical Association, but it's not. Truly, we're actually more busy. There's more people getting pulled in more directions and more jobs being created. There's more people working, and it just tells you that we're always busy, even when it appears that we're not. We were particularly busy though compared to last August.
Yeah.
Last August we had one event of significance of 2,500 or more. I think we had 10 this year. So exponentially stronger August for a lot of people, and that's obviously positive.
Well, look, I feel like as we're talking about this, and we sort of talk about the karma to Katrina, but this year from Taylor Swift in October, which someone I read somewhere is as big as a Super Bowl.
I think it might be bigger. Look, I don't want to talk down the Super Bowl, but
Yeah, tell me
talking about 3 nights with Taylor Swift, and it's massive.
So what's going to happen from now until, August of 25 is the 20th anniversary of Katrina. So
Yeah.
tell me what over the next 9 months.
Yeah, so if you think about our calendar and how it really, I guess keeps us the busiest, October through May is always busy, right? It's conference season and it's meeting season, and there's so many other things like Jazz Fest and French Quarter Fest and everything in between. Next year happen to have Super Bowl, and in October you've got Taylor Swift. But we a lot of the coverage and the conversations right now are preparing for the Super Bowl, right? And that's what people are talking about. I think that's a great thing to rally around. Obviously we're excited about having 6,000 journalists in town and 500 million people's eyeballs on the city of New Orleans over the lead up to, and then of course the game itself. But I think it's been said by many, and it's really true. We're really trying to just improve the city from day to day, and the Super Bowl is a great excuse to do that. But right before the Super Bowl, we've got National Auto Dealers Association coming in. This is one of our long-term, strongest and most important customers and clients. We've had them since the late 70s. It's roughly $500 million in economic impact over that time period for just this meeting. Talking about a $50 million meeting that comes to us every few years. And so we're getting ready for them as much as we're getting ready for the Super Bowl. And it's fortunate that that's happening like 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. So we will be kind of polishing up for both of those events. But, you know, September and October, we start kicking into a pretty busy season. We've got a variety of different meetings of different sizes coming in. Taylor Swift opportunity to me is a huge one. I mean,
But why is it big other than my daughter wants to go?
Well, so I have a 6 and 8 year old daughter, but I have 2 daughters, 6 and 8.
I got my Karma thing on.
Yes, I mean, we live and breathe Taylor Swift in my house, so that's important. But I mean, from my perspective, it is the biggest thing happening in the cultural world anywhere on the planet. They chose New Orleans to be here. I think it's telling that she just recorded 3 songs on her last album here in New Orleans on Esplanade, and you know, that's something nobody can ever take away. She recorded 3 songs, I think, on the latest album. That's a wonderful thing. Celebrated her 33rd birthday here. They got a little coverage on that, but so there's kind of a
maybe she'll be proposed here.
Hopefully something amazing. Like a lot of conversations about whether she's redoing her albums, Taylor's version, to kind of recapture control over the rights to those songs, and a lot of speculation that she may drop her Reputation, Taylor's version here in New Orleans. We'll see. But I mean, one, you want to be a part of the biggest cultural phenomenon that's happening on the planet, and we are, and we're fortunate for that. But it's also an opportunity for our community, I think, to put our best foot forward and hopefully show the world why every major tour should include New Orleans. You know, I mean, there's an argument to be made about the cultural importance of our community, and I think it's recognized from the music world. But again, we're a 400,000 person city. Even the metropolitan area is not significantly competitive with these other major metro areas. So, you know, we've got to roll out the red carpet. We're having some meetings about special things that we can do for this event, and make sure that we make a mark. So I think it's an opportunity. I mean, we look at everything as an opportunity, right? This is another one to basically say, how do we make clear that things that happen here are special? And, you know, I think we do a pretty good job of that as a community. Certainly, a lot of those things are just organically created, and comes from the creativity of the people. But we're also going to curate some things to hopefully elevate that experience. And, you know, to me, we just want people talking about special things happening in our city, and that's an opportunity for that. And of course, we go into 2025, where I think you really see full recovery from COVID for the first time. We've had great recovery, don't get me wrong, but sort of a full recovery where you're talking about real recovery from not just a revenue standpoint, but also like an occupancy type standpoint and a visitorship standpoint. I believe we had maybe 17.8 million in 23, the latest numbers I've seen. So, I mean, we're not far off, but we're still not quite back to that $19.5 million number. But 25 shows and predicts great recovery, including the Super Bowl, National Auto Dealers, some other marquee events through the rest of the year, and then you know, sliding through the summer and building momentum into 26, 27, 28. I think as far as booking pace and sales go, from our perspective, 26 and 27 are like 32% ahead of booking pace historically. 28 gets even better, 29 is even better than that, and 30 is even better than that. So, I mean, there's a lot of work that has to be done between now
Because they stopped booking long term, right? I guess after Katrina, they stopped the long term booking. And then
certainly for a while they paused, but at the end of the day, they're traditionally booking 6, 7, 8 years in advance for these events. I mean, we have National Auto Dealers for 2025, but we've also got them booked in 29 and 32 and 37, and you know, I mean, we're booking events in the late 2030s and sometimes even as far out as 2040. I mean, that's just, it's wild when you think about it, but it's just the way they do business. A lot of them get into, what we like to do is get them into a cycle where they feel really confident and comfortable that they're not only going to have a great event, but they're also going to get great attendance in our city. And so they're happy to be on the books every 5 years or every 4 years or every 7 years or whatever that may be. So we certainly are, you know, I talked to a customer just last week that was like, yeah, we're interested in coming in 28. but we're also looking for 2030. I was like, well, let's book 28 and 30. I mean, no reason not to book both.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, well, let's take a look at it. I mean, we're definitely trying to book multiple years and build these years out as far out as we can, and then you can fill in the gaps as you get the opportunity to. But our team's really always selling. One of the things that our salespeople talk about a lot is an old maxim in the industry is it's not about what you book, it's about what you move. And the idea is that there's always a better piece of business for every time frame. Mm-hmm. And so we should always be on the lookout to getting it. And if we have to move something else to a different time frame to be able to make this other business work, then that's something that we're going to do. And we're kind of always doing that. We're always shifting things a little bit around and moving them. I think you're succeeding when you have enough business that you can do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we've got some of that happening. So it's a good sign for the demand that there is for people wanting to spend their time in our city. I mean, it's positive to see.
So August of 25, so we'll leave the group thinking about this. 20th anniversary of Katrina. What would you like the narrative to be? If you could write the headlines of our paper, what would you like the headlines to be after 9 months of the world looking at our city? What would you like the world to hear?
It's a great question, and I mean, there's so many things, right? You want people.
It's a headline. You got five words.
Safest city on the planet.
Yeah.
Safest city on the planet. That would be New Orleans
is that
safest city on the
possible?
planet.
Is it possible?
It really depends on how you define it.
Yeah.
There's so many aspects to that, right? I think it's probably not possible because there are a lot of challenges out there. It doesn't mean we can't be on the road to it. I mean, look, we've had incredible news lately about great reductions in violent crime. Yep. But there's more to safety than just
so we were like the
safety.
Fourth most safest or fourth
improvement.
Fourth most improved city in crime. That's amazing.
And I think there are some agencies, like some portions of NOPD, like the 8th District downtown, their solve rate is competitive with anybody anywhere in the country. So I mean, not only are we, safer in that way, but we're also solving crimes quicker and better than anywhere else. And I think that matters too, because people stop committing crimes in those places where they feel like they're going to be caught. But there's more to safety, and I think if we're going to talk about Katrina in August, then what you also want to talk about is $16 billion in hurricane protection that's been invested in our community, and that has proven to be successful in protecting our community from major storms like Hurricane Ida just a couple of years ago. And while there are certainly impacts, and I don't want to diminish the fact that when you have a major storm, you're going to be impacted by it. There's no way to really avoid it. But, the investments have worked. And so you are safe doing business in our city. And you're probably safer than most cities along the Gulf Coast and along the Florida to Texas. I mean, we're as prepared as anybody from a hurricane protection standpoint and a storm protection standpoint. And my hope is that does get communicated as a part of this, because the legacy of Katrina is so many different things, mm-hmm. and mixed certainly in a lot of different ways. But the investment by the federal government on the hurricane protection system and the risk reduction system is unprecedented, and also I think
won't be duplicated.
Successful. Probably can't be duplicated. So, it's interesting how often we have to talk about those things with customers, but we're doing it successfully because it's a different way of talking about it. It's a proactive thing. It's a something to be proud of. We should be proud of the engineering that went into doing that. We should be proud of the fact that a lot of our businesses participated in building that. I think that we should be at least we should be proud of the coastal master plan and the investments that are being made there. I mean, that work will never be done, but nobody else in this country has a 50-year coastal master plan to build a more resilient coast. I mean, that's not really political. It's very much science-driven, and those are the kind of things that we should be celebrating and having people understand, because I think those things make us a compelling place to invest and to do business, and for people to understand that that this place is secure and safe, right? So, I mean, the safety message for me is a little deeper than just sort of like making sure that the public safety system is working right. It's critical, and the improvements there and important, but there are other aspects to it, and I think there are also technically things to celebrate. And one of the things we kind of leave with customers a lot is, yes, New Orleans is unique and one of the most remarkable places on earth. And you can have an amazing cultural experience here. It's authentic, great music, incredible food, all of it. But at the end of the day, if you got a conference or a convention or a meeting, those things are all nice and they're going to attract people to it, but you have to technically produce an excellent event. You have to have the right facilities, you have to have the right people executing it, you have to have all of the right companies here to support it and make sure that it happens, and it happens at a very high level. And that's the stuff that we do every day. And we do it with excellence, and we're renowned for it across the country. And I'm just not sure that people locally kind of get that.
We think that's normal.
I think we think that it just happens.
Yeah.
I think we're like, well, of course they chose to come to New Orleans. I mean, it's New Orleans. We're amazing. And that's true. But without the excellence of the people doing it, and without the excellent facilities and the investments that have been made to make that a priority, the Superdome and the Convention Center and the hotels and everything else, really doesn't matter that you're an awesome place to be, because I'm an association or an event planner. I might get 80% of my revenue for the year from this annual meeting. I can't risk that on a place that's not going to deliver an excellent meeting. And we should be proud of the way that we execute that stuff. This community is great at it and gets celebrated for that nationally. I think locally, it's not always appreciated, because it's another one of those things that we take for granted. That's just how it is. We're good at that. Well, yeah, we are, but it takes work and you have to stay on it.
Well, maybe, final question, and this will be the beginning of a monthly talk together, but we're our own worst enemy sometimes. We're so hard on ourselves. Give us what is one stat or fact or one talking point you hope everyone listening goes back to their mother, brother, father, sister, spouse to say, hey, did you know this about New Orleans? What's one positive fact you'd love for everybody to repeat?
I'll just tell you one thing that made me proud recently. We just worked with a group called GL Events, which produced Bocuse d'Or Pastry World Cup here in New Orleans. The first time they've ever produced this event. This is basically like the Olympics of the culinary world. First time they've done it in the United States. And they were not going to come to New Orleans. They were going to another city. We got kind of a tip that this was a possibility. They were going to do it for the first time in the U.S. We went after it, we won it, and we did it here in June. GL Events is one of the biggest event planners in the world. They just did the Paris Olympics. They do Formula One in Vegas and all over the planet. By 3 days into the event here in New Orleans, they were asking if they could please come back in 2026. And what that said to me was, we're doing this right. And we're doing it in a way that's not just right and good, but that it's so good that some of these people that are the people, world class, they want to be back. And they're ready to announce it publicly in public places before they even talk to us about it. We're coming back in 2026. I mean, that speaks to a level of excellence that I think is kind of irrefutable, and an endorsement of the great work at the convention center and in our hotel facilities across the city, and in our restaurants and with our chefs and with our team at New Orleans and Company and with so many others to help make it happen. It's world class. I mean, we're a world class city when it comes to doing this stuff, and I think people get it, but I don't think they know how hard people are working in other cities to take it from us. And so,
but the fact we are world class.
We're there.
We're there.
And we can keep getting better. We should, right?
But we're world class.
We're world class at that.
If everyone were to say that, remind us.
We're world class.
We would not want to give up that reign.
We get frustrated with other things, and there's no reason we shouldn't get frustrated with some of those things, right? We want to be world class in everything. And I know that people don't want to kind of quote unquote just be world class at tourism. This is more than that. I mean, business meetings, conventions, conferences, that's business. We're world class at doing that part of business. And we should give ourselves some credit for that, and we should expand it. We should grow into other sectors, and we should continue to be world class. But we're world class in a lot of different things. And I was just really touched that an irrefutably world class company that does business all over the planet would be so pleased that they would be ready to do it again with us without a whole lot of thought, because the process had gone so well. And this is an international company that can do this wherever they want, and people will roll out the red carpet for them to do it. I think it speaks again to our people,
Yeah.
and it just speaks to, I think, a commitment to excellence. And we do have that in our community in a lot of different ways, and we need to build on that. I mean, if we keep building on that and adding to it, then everything else takes care of itself.
Well, if everybody believed we were world class, we are. So, Walt, one is, I know you're very busy, so one is thank you for your time.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Love to have this conversation every month to inject some optimism and positivity, and also reinforce that mindset that will get us to being world class. This is the first episode of Walt Talk. Walt, thank you.
Happy to be a part of it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tim. Enjoyed it.
Bye.